Awesome. Well, welcome. I am really thrilled. This is our first Hollins Happy Hour of 2021. And what better way to get started, even at the end of the month, than to think about goals that you can and want to achieve in the new year? I know that's on my mind and the top of my list, and I'm sure a lot of you all. So I really appreciate you all being here tonight. I just pulled up Jill's website because we were having such fun talking, and she opens with, "I love people. Even more, I love seeing people thrive." And I think, if nothing else, that can set the tone for what we're going to learn tonight, how we're going to figure out how to set goals that we can and want to achieve. And Jill, I thank you so much for being with us tonight, and I'm excited to learn from you.
So thank you so much for having me. And I see so many smiling, happy faces, and I really appreciate that. Hollins has not officially been my home for about 3 years now, but it is still my home and definitely in my heart. So thank you all so much for being a part of this session. Is it okay, Lauren, then just to switch over to like the presentation mode? Okay, super. So we're trying something a little bit different with the happy hours this time. In terms of the past, I've noticed that there were a lot of conversations, wonderful conversations that I've been listening to and got to hear a little bit more. And so today we're going to switch into a little bit of workshop mode, which is super fun for me because I have been away from Hollins. As I said, I resigned my position in 2017 and started my own business called Center for Thriving. And the real focus of that is expanding human potential through communication and well-being education. So I'm still a teacher, still doing a lot of teaching with related to, of course, communication, which is my background, but also how it interacts and connects with well being. So, how do we communicate and connect with ourselves? How do we communicate and connect with others? And then, for those of you who've ever been in my class, also, how does the world communicate with us? And how do we analyze those messages? So, I'm going to do a share screen. But before I do, just want to remind everybody that this message or this session is being recorded. I will do my best if you send me private messages, which you are welcome to do. You're going to see me look over to it's my right, but it's because I have the chat box set up there. So if you want to send me some private messages, feel free to do so. I will do my best to keep track of the chat. I also have a table sitting next to me where I'll take some notes. So if you ever see me looking down, I promise you my phone is off. All of my alerts are off. You folks have my full attention. And if you want to get my attention, go ahead and either unmute yourself. You're always welcome to do that, or put a message in the chat to the larger group or to me, and I will be looking for that. So those are my welcome to the Zoom world with Joel Weber overview. So I'm going to go ahead and start by saying thank you all so much for being here. I know that our time is very precious. I say that is the one limited, truly limited resource we have. You can make more time, you can make more money, you can make more energy, but you can never make more time. So thank you for giving me some of your time today. I really appreciate that. Welcome to the workshop on how to make goals you can and want to achieve. And those are going to be two really important words that I'm going to focus on throughout this brief presentation, but then throughout the entire session. And so, as Lauren mentioned, January is a great time to be thinking about goals. And for a variety of reasons, it's a new year, it's a new opportunity, but also because when we look at the research about goals, we know that setting good goals can help you to reduce your stress and increase your productivity. And for me, that has been a huge focus of the clients that I've worked with. I've worked with students, parents, I actually work at a medical school now, I work with physicians. And so bringing all of this research to these different audiences, professional audiences for sure, to help them really to mitigate and manage their stress, especially during COVID, but pre-COVID as well, and help them with feeling better, feeling more productive, just getting more of the things that matter for them done. Because for me, it's really about helping people lead balanced, meaningful, and authentic lives, not just getting more stuff done in less amount of time. It's really about helping yourself to prosper, flourish, or grow, which is my definition of thriving. So, January, great time to start thinking about goals. But for many people, some of them are super awesome at creating goals and get their success, and others, start a goal and often feel defeated when they can't accomplish that. And when I start to look at the research in my own experience and people that I talk to, there's like some pretty good research about why this might be the case. And so when we look at the academic research about goal setting and goal achievement, there's two major factors that keep coming up about why people are able to effectively accomplish their goals. And there's two criteria. And one is that people are more likely to accomplish goals that they find or have some sort of value or interest in, and also goals in which they have some level of expectancy for success. So they have to believe, they have to want to accomplish those goals. And they also have to believe that they're realistic. And if you just stop for a moment and think about perhaps some of your past New Year's resolutions, or larger goals, they probably had a lot of value for you. You had a lot of interest in them, but they may not have been terribly realistic. There may have not been a likelihood of success. And so, what I would like to do today is to introduce to you folks something that I learned. Actually, I was at the Botetourt Health Club working out, and I am the kind of person that I love reading text. So, a lot of people like visuals. For me, if it's words, it draws my attention. And there was a sheet of paper sitting on the side that had sparkles on it. So I took it home and well, actually, I think I took a picture of it. Try not to steal, but I took it home and I looked it up and learned a lot more about SMART goals. And so SMART goals, and Patty O'Toole used to laugh whenever I would say it. She says, "Are these not dumb goals, Jill?" And I was like, "No, Patty, it's an acronym. It stands for specific, measurable, attractive, realistic, and time bound." And now I know that SMART goals get used in the health and wellness industry a lot. They get used in a lot of business. So if you're familiar with SMART goals, you may have heard some different letters, different words to be associated with those letters. And the reason that I have attractive and realistic are the two that I've seen to be relevant. I've seen achievable. But I choose those specific words because those SMART goals criteria fit beautifully in that larger academic research about having some sort of value or interest so you feel attracted to those goals, and also that level of expectancy of success. If your goals are more specific, more measurable, more realistic, more time bound, you will feel more confident about them and ideally more likely to accomplish them. So, in today's workshop, I'm going to give you a slightly longer overview of SMART goals because I really want you to walk away feeling competent that you can make your own SMART goal and confident that you can do this and ideally teach it to others. That is always my goal. Boil it down to a level that someone could then take that information and explain it to somebody else. The next thing I'm going to have you folks do is actually create a SMART goal.
Oh
I've
yeah.
made, oh, we have somebody in the background.
No.
You can invite them. I'm not sure whose mic is on, but we have a friend joining us as well. So I'm gonna help you create a SMART goal, and I've created a very simple tool for you to use. I'm also going to give you an opportunity, fingers crossed, and should the party decide that they would like to put you into some small breakout groups so you could just share your SMART goal with somebody else and just get some feedback. Because what I have found is that oftentimes my best ideas come because I've opened myself. It's a vulnerable state, I know, but I've opened myself up to feedback, and as a result been able to make all of my materials better. So in fact, everything that I'm presenting you today has become better because I've presented it to other groups who have said, do this, change that, try that. And so we're going to try and model that behavior and use that strategy as well. The last thing we'll do is save some time, ideally for questions and answers. And I have thrown my email address all over materials today so that you folks can follow up with me afterwards. I clearly love to talk and would love to talk more about this tool and many others that I found to be incredibly helpful in helping people to thrive. So let's jump back to the SMART goals very quickly. That first criteria I mentioned is specific. And so when people are creating goals, taking some sort of a general goal and trying to make it smart, I often ask them to ask themselves if their goal is clearly defined. Can they point to it? Can they know when they're what they are doing? And I'd like to ask them if they can distinguish their goals from other related goals. And this was definitely something that I struggled with while I was working on my dissertation as a student and later as a professor, about being able to say, like, this was my specific goal. So that's why I always like to start with this S, not just because the title starts starts with it. And so here are just two examples of a general goal that I've made a little more specific. So as an illustration for you folks. So getting more sleep is a goal I hear all the time. I work with very sleepy doctors. I work with a lot of working professionals who just would like to get more sleep. And so we make it more specific. In this particular case, it's by adding a quantifying amount. So 6 hours of sleep, but exercise more. Sometimes I take that example and I'll say, well, what kind of exercise do you want to do? And they'll say, well, I want to run. And so we'll change that to make it a little bit more specific, to move it, if you will, up, or I guess it would be down from the letter of abstraction to something a little more concrete, a little more bite size. Another example I hear all the time, I want to do well at work, especially now with COVID, when there's a lot of folks that are trying to make the best and be the best in their current jobs because of the job loss and a lot of fear that that brings. So we talk about, how can we measure, what does it mean to do well at work? And this might mean getting good ratings at work on some sort of a performance review or some sort of an assessment. And so the next criteria that I like to use, and this again, it's not in the same order as SMART, but I like to jump to the time bound, because what a lot of people will often do is they just forget to answer these questions. Like, what is the end, the end time or the deadline for my goal's completion? Or they'll say, they'll just kind of forget of how long do I have to finish my goal. And so if you've ever created a goal and just never put a deadline, like I'm going to work out, and then you do it for a couple of weeks and then you suddenly stop and you feel like a failure because you haven't continued to work out. It's oftentimes because there isn't some sort of a time boundary for it. So what I always recommend, and this is of course what the research says, it's not just mine, but is putting some sort of a container around it. So if I were to try and get 6 hours of sleep, I mean, is that for a month? Is that for a year? Is that until, I have my eternal rest? When does that end? And so here I might say it for 1 week. And for example, with the get good grading ratings at work, ideally I want to get good ratings at work all of the time. But if I make it again something a little bit more achievable, to go back to that original language, I might say I want to get good ratings at my upcoming performance review. So for the next 3 months, this is my goal, or for the next 1 month, or maybe it is, I have a practice I try and do where I do 3 before 3. So I set 3 goals that I can reasonably and strive to accomplish before 3 p.m. And so again, it's before 3 p.m. is really that time bound marker for me. So the next element is going to be measurable goals, or a level of measurability. And in these particular cases, I always ask people to ask if there's a clear end point or finish line. And this one's going to be a little bit tricky. I try and start with the time bound because the measurability is often it can be very similar for sure, but gets a little bit confusing. But for this goal, this component, it's really about, can I easily track my goal's progress or completion? And so for an example for this, I've already added a little bit. This wasn't a terribly great example, but getting the 6 hours of sleep, it adds a measurable factor. I wear a Fitbit every night. One of the first things I do in the morning is I check my sleep score. And so I'm able to see the number of hours that I sleep, and then I can make modifications about the times when I go to bed, like how early I get to bed or how late I sleep in. I am a night owl, in order to, help to get some of those positive effects of good sleep. So here I might say get 6 hours of sleep. So the 6 component is a measurability. It's a quantifiable number. And I might say every night for 1 week. And so again, every night I'm able to check a box and say, did I do it on Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday? It's some sort of a marker. And that 1 week, yes, is technically a measurable element, but that just shows me, like, if I were to make a time tracking chart or a goal tracking chart, I'm going to think about it in this larger container of 1 week. I promise you, when we get to the SMART Goal Creator, I've broken down measurability into far more details, because I've heard back from the audiences that I've worked with. They're like, I'm really struggling on this part. So if you're kind of it's not quite clicking just yet, fear not. I've got another backup plan. So another example would be like, get good ratings at my upcoming performance review. You might say, I want to get 2 excellent ratings. And in both of those examples, measurability, if the chart that they're using to assess me has, below average, or unsatisfactory, below average, average, above average, excellent, that's a rating system. That's a measurability. That's a marker where I can say I'm doing really well. I also added in that two, like out of two of the five criteria or two of the five questions, that's another measure of another example of measurability. So I've added a couple of layers onto this one. The point being that it's really helpful for us when tracking goals to be able to say, yes, I've done it. Yes, or no, I haven't done it. I'm a gold star person. I've had this thing called star worthy moments. And these are just like these moments that you're able to think of, like, did I do what I was trying to accomplish? Like, this is something to mark a success. And I think a lot about that when crafting goals for people and helping them to figure out, are we going to celebrate what we've just done? So the next component is attractive. And I've already talked a little bit about this, but I always ask myself, does this goal appeal to me or have value to me? Because let's face it, we often get goals that somebody else has imposed on us that are not terribly attractive. And so I'm all about helping people with autonomy and helping them take control in situations where they can and improve their self-efficacy. And that's about figuring out, how can I take a goal that is less than desirable and make it a little bit more desirable? And so in this particular instance, I'll ask, am I motivated to complete this goal? And if not, what can I do to change it? So if I go back to the 6 hours of sleep goal, for instance, I like 8 hours of sleep. I am a sleep evangelist. In my ideal world, I do not need caffeine. I'm a tea drinker, not a coffee drinker. And so when I am living my best life, so to speak, I'm getting enough sleep that I don't actually need caffeine in the morning. And so a more attractive goal for me is to get 8 hours of sleep. Now, you might already be saying that's not terribly realistic. That's the last one. We'll talk about that too. But getting that 2 excellent ratings at my upcoming performance review, you might say, actually, I would like to get some more. So you might want all excellent ratings at your upcoming performance review. And I used an exercise example a few minutes ago to talk about this. One of the ways that I make exercise more attractive, actually, I just bought a treadmill right before Thanksgiving, and I have set up a workstation on that treadmill. So I just bring my laptop there, and every day I'm able to get on the treadmill for an hour with my computer. So I'm able to work out for an hour while working for an hour. So that has suddenly, I'm 8 months pregnant right now, and I'm officially getting more exercise as 8 months pregnant in the middle of a pandemic where I can't go to a gym than I did when I was not pregnant and able to go and work out all the time. So figuring out these ways to make something more attractive to you, pretty helpful. So the last criteria that I want to introduce is the realistic component. And that's where we kind of do a self-assessment and ask, can I realistically accomplish this task? Do I have the time? Do I have the resources that I need to complete whatever it is that this particular goal is? And so as I mentioned already with the sleep, and I have 3 step kids, so getting 8 hours of sleep every night this week is not always terribly realistic. Their school schedule and my night owl tendencies don't always merge. So trying to get 8 hours of sleep at least 3 nights this week is more realistic. So if I set that as my goal, and that could be a stretch goal, it can be, which I love to do, just pushes me a little bit in order to, again, help me to accomplish that larger goal, which for me is to get good sleep. The next example is get all excellent ratings at my upcoming review. I am human. It's not always possible to be perfect in all areas. In fact, I'm perfectly imperfect. So a more realistic goal might be to get 3 ratings, excellent ratings on my upcoming performance review. It may not be as attractive as getting all, but it might also be something that's more realistic, which it could then encourage me once I get this goal. That's the beauty of accomplishing goals. When you accomplish a goal, you will often get higher motivation to set another goal. And then it becomes this wonderful web of goal accomplishment. So that in a nutshell is the example or an articulation of the SMART goals idea. And again, I use the term specific, measurable, attractive, realistic, and time bound. You might see some variations, but they're all, again, with that larger goal of helping you to identify goals that you can and want to achieve. So what I would love for you folks to do, if you would humor me, is to use the SMART goal creator that I have made and go through and make a SMART goal for yourself. Now I'm going to paste the link right into the chat for you. And I don't think it makes a hyperlink in the chat. I think you actually have to go in and select it, but I'm going to switch my screen for just a minute to the SMART Goal Creator, which you folks should be able to see at this moment. I just wanted to let you know there's an email address request. You do not have to put in a real email address. In fact, you can complete the entire SMART Goal Creator without actually hitting submit. So if you're saying, Jill, I don't want you to see my SMART goal, I don't want to put it out there into the world, do not worry. I will not force you. You can go ahead and put in just a fake email address, something along those lines, or you can put in my email address if you would like to, and you'll be able to work your way right through this SMART Goal Creator. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to mute my mic for just a few minutes, and I'm going to stop sharing my screen because I'm able to see when SMART goals come in. And as I start to notice that the majority of the group has the SMART Goal Creator, we will move to the next step. In the meantime, if you have any questions, you can either unmute your mic, or you can go into the chat. I keep pointing over here because that's where the chat box is on my computer. You can send me a personal message. I will have my mic muted, but I also will be able to send you a message back, and I will answer any questions that you may have up to this point. So I'm going to go ahead and mute myself and stop sharing my screen and let you folks make some SMART goals.